Welcome to our 9th of 11 webinars in our 2024 Women in Leadership Executive Speaker Series, with this one specifically focused on women leaders in some traditional industries. I'm Dr. Susan Madsen, Founding Director of the Utah Women in Leadership Project, and I'm also the Karen Haid Huntsman Endowed Professor of Leadership in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. And I'm the host and will be the panel moderator today. And this event furthers the mission of the Utah Women in Leadership Project, which is to strengthen the impact of Utah girls and women. And we serve Utah and its residents by first producing relevant, trustworthy, and applicable research. And I know you too have read our research. Second, creating and gathering valuable resources. And third, convening trainings and events like this that inform, inspire, and ignite growth and change for all Utahns. And I do want to thank our sponsors, the Utah Education Network, UEN, the John M. Huntsman School of Business, and USU Extension. So I'd like to jump right in. And first, I would like to introduce Jill Koziol, who is the co-founder and CEO of Motherly, the leading parenting destination, empowering mothers to thrive. An Inc. 5000 fastest growing private company and a Parity.org best company for women to advance, Motherly is built for mothers by mothers, engaging in an audience of 40 million plus. I did not know that. If 40 million plus readers and viewers a month, Motherly offers an on-demand parent education classes, Webby Award-winning videos, the Motherly podcast, essays and articles, and a highly engaged social media community. The co-author of 2 books and a sought-after speaker and advisor, Jill is passionate about serving and empowering women and mothers, because when mamas are, I love that, mamas are successful, everyone wins. That's so true. Jill has a bachelor's degree in political science and economics and a master's degree in security studies from Georgetown University. So welcome to you, Jill.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
And before I introduce Vanessa, I think I'm going to send you the first question and have you talk for a minute, and then I'll introduce Jill or Vanessa and have her answer the same question. My first question to you is, let's have you just give us a few minutes of some background on your career path. How did you get to where you are right now? So Jill?
Well, absolutely. So it was a windy path, as it often is for many of us in our career. I thought I would do international politics and economics. I worked for some nonprofits. I worked in the intelligence community in the Washington, D.C. area, doing consulting work for a long time. And my husband and I, with our 6-month-old daughter, moved to California when he was getting out of the Navy and into business school. And we were in Silicon Valley, in a very entrepreneurial area. And when in Rome, I got that entrepreneurial bug. And for me, what I found was that motherhood really inspired me to be more of a creator and to take on that leap. And so I founded my first company called Honeybee Child, where I invented, patented, and brought to market a baby goods product that we got in Babies R Us's all around the country back when that was a thing. And as I exited that, I received a call from my now co-founder, who was an award-winning journalist and editor, Liz Tennedy. And we decided that we needed to really redefine motherhood for this new generation of mothers. And this was back in 2015, when we had digital native, highly educated, diverse mothers, women becoming mothers. And we wanted to create a new platform that would meet them where they were and help them see that motherhood could be an opportunity to nurture, not lose themselves. And so Motherly is venture-backed, and we've been around we just had our 8th anniversary. We work in the media space with partners like Chatbooks, actually, Vanessa's company. And it's been really a pleasure to see the impact that in many ways a movement that can also become a business in a way.
Love that. Some things I didn't know about you, Jill, in that introduction. So awesome. So Vanessa Quigley she co-founded Chatbooks, in 2014. It's been 10 years. I did not realize that 10
I
years
know.
has come that quick.
It's crazy.
And that was founded to help families organize and enjoy their family stories. And I love your title. As the Chatbooker-in-Chief, Vanessa is deeply involved in all aspects of the business with keen attention to all creative and product design choices. Vanessa's aha moment came when she found her youngest son clutching his most prized possession, a photo album his preschool teacher made for him. Once an avid scrapbooker, Vanessa knew there needed to be a better solution for her photos stuck on her phone. Now, millions of parents have printed their family memories with the Chatbooks app. Vanessa was named Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year in 2017. She authored DIY advice book, Real Moms, Real Hacks, and hosts the Mom Force podcast, which is the top 3% of parenting podcasts nationwide. And then in 2021, Chatbooks was named the #1 place to work for women in the United States by Fortune magazine. I missed that, Vanessa. I did not know that. That is an awesome
It was very exciting.
designation.
Mhm.
And some people may not know this, and I did because you and I've crossed paths before, that you are the mother of 7 children. And you have a bachelor's degree in, surprise to some, vocal performance and pedagogy from Brigham Young University. And I don't know, do you still sing opera whenever you can?
Oh, whenever I can, not very much in the last 10 years, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens. And you love to find humor in life, especially while raising a family. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love to have you answer that same question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give us some background.
Well, it's ironic when I heard the introduction about this being traditional, a more traditional track. I think everything about my career was untraditional. I went to BYU wanting to be on Broadway, and somehow I got misdirected into the classical voice program. And before I knew it, I was being trained to be an opera singer. And, I loved that. And I had big dreams to go to Europe and not to have kids for a long time. I was going to focus on my career and be a professional opera singer. But I found out that we were expecting 3 months after I got married. I had 2 years left of school. So I graduated with a 1-year-old and did not move to Europe to sing. We actually did move to Europe for my husband's job. I did sing a little bit, but my focus was on that baby and the 6 that came afterwards. But my passion for music, was there, and it's kind of what kept me going as a mom. And I sang a lot in community theater. I directed some productions, and my husband is the serial entrepreneur, the MBA, always wanting to start a business together, but I just wasn't interested. But I had that moment with my preschooler, actually right before he went to kindergarten. And, I had come to this point in my life where I was finally going to have my days to myself, and I was going to go back to school, get my master's, or become a yoga instructor. I don't know, like the world was my oyster. But I just had this idea of how we could help other moms like me get their photos out of their phones and into the hands of their kids, where they could really, know like who they are and where they came from and what they're capable of. I mean, I know I felt that way when I looked at the beautiful scrapbooks that my mom made for me. And I had failed at that job. My first has a scrapbook, my second has half a scrapbook, and then, fell off the wagon. And so I had this idea. I gave it to my husband and I said, go build this business. And then I watched him just do everything totally wrong. And so as I kept offering my opinions, he's like, why don't you just come join us? And I was really reluctant because I had no training. I had no experience. I'd never taken a business marketing. I didn't know anything, but I knew our customer, and I'm like, well, you can learn anything from Google. And so, yeah, 10 years later, I'm here. We're still doing it.
I love that. That is such a great story. And being a mom of 7, I mean, you still have a lot of kids, I'm assuming, in the house.
I mean, I have 7 and a couple in-laws and a grandbaby now. Our family's still growing, and I love it.
Oh,
And Vanessa, I have to tell you that hits home because both of my daughters, I actually literally today was catching up on my chapbook from last year, finishing it. And both of my daughters have different years or different albums literally by their beds
Yeah.
of chapbooks. So
Yeah.
exactly what you intended to be is what has happened.
Oh, I'm so,
That
so
is-
happy. I love hearing
That
that.
is so awesome. And I have to tell you that I did keep up some of the photo albums, more photo albums, but only because I had 6 months on pure bed rest with my last child.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I could be in a recliner and work on, I had to keep busy 6 months. That's the only reason. And I don't
I'm
wish
glad
that
you made
on
good use of
anybody
that
else.
time.
And he's
Are you
27 now.
surprised?
He's 27 and 6'4" now. So,
Wow.
so it was worth laying in bed for that long. So, both of you mentioned a little bit about this, but when you began your career, and Vanessa, I know you didn't even think about this career, other than motherhood as a career in some ways. But did you imagine you would end up being the leader and an influencer that you have become? And Jill, any thoughts about that?
Well, I will say I did feel like a leader in my home. Like my husband started businesses, and so he was like, you know, startup life. Like we barely saw him. So I was fully the boss in my home, and I ran my home like a well-oiled machine. And I got a lot of joy and energy from doing things outside of the home too. So I, my music was like, that was my passion. That's what I loved. And I was a better mom if I was working, outside of the home. It wasn't a full-time job. I was there most of the time, but I was a huge advocate for finding something that brings you joy. And it doesn't have to be playing, Little Pet Shop in my basement.
Yeah.
Like that actually, I couldn't do that. My next door neighbor, that worked for her and that was great. So I think that I liked being a cheerleader for all of my mom friends and all that they were doing, and for my husband and what he was doing. I fit well in that role. But I think that all those years of, mothering and also, developing my talents on the side was great preparation for leading a company, especially a company who, like, we serve families and moms are our core customer.
I love that. And, we still almost, I would say a couple times a week, I get emails from women who feel totally out of the workforce because they've been at home and feel like they don't have the right brain, the right, the background. And I'm like, you do learn so much when you mother and take care that those things translate over. So I love what you're saying about that. Jill, I wanted to give you a slightly different question. Both of you have become leaders in different ways. What has motivated you through the years to become a leader, use your voice, and so forth?
So motherly, for me, I always intended motherly to not be personality driven. I was looking at some brands when I was thinking about growing the business, thinking about like the Martha Stewarts of the world and others that really depended on a particular person in a brand. And I wanted to ensure that motherly wasn't the Jill show, that it wasn't personality driven, that every mother could see themselves in that. And what that led me to do was be absolutely obsessed on who this woman is. And so we've been very data led, running the largest statistically significant study of mothers every year, the State of Motherhood Survey. And through that, I was able to see how much alignment there is. For all the differences that media and others try to say that are across motherhood, there's really so much that aligns us. And so we started to see ourselves as we can be the voice of this generation of mothers. We can advocate for those things. We can empower mothers and women and their allies with this data and lead with that and drive change in the family at the at the very local level, that we can inspire corporations to make different changes, state governments, federal governments. And so really that desire to be a leader in this came out of seeing that there was no united voice. Mothers, when we are united, we can make change. And because there is such an opportunity in an election year, in fact, I mean, why isn't there like the mother party right? I
Yes.
mean, we are the largest voting bloc that's out there. There's so much that we could do together with just common sense things. And I can tell you from our data, there is so much that we are aligned on. And so for me, it was about giving voice to that is what really prompted me to take on more of a leadership role.
And your passion just comes out, Jill, I have to say, because when you have that passion, sometimes that's what drives, like, you're going to help people, and you can make money while you're doing it, right? But there's something that you can help people with. So I'm going to ask each of you a different question as well. I'm going to go back to you, Vanessa, and I'm going to ask this question for some of our episodes. So, and I have done research in this area, and I don't like the word balance, but I'm going to use it. So here's your question, Vanessa. How do you balance your career, personal life, passions? Is there really such a thing as balancing? So give me some of your thoughts.
Yeah, it's hard to have that conversation without using the B word.
I
But no, I don't like it either. And I tend to use the word integration.
Actually, that's what the literature,
Yeah.
I
Yes.
did some studies on that, and the literature switched from balance to integration.
Yeah, I think that's a better, because it's not like this. You're never going to get exactly equal, right? And I didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up in Central Florida. I'm the oldest of 12 kids. It was a very unique childhood. My dad one day came home with a cow, though, and he was like, I think maybe because we couldn't keep a gallon of milk in the house, or maybe he thought, we need to keep these kids busy. We need to teach them some hard work. But it was it was not pleasant milking a cow in the heat and humidity of Florida. But it gave us a little glimpse of what farm life is like. And I have thought back as we tended that cow, we also had chickens, we had some sheep. It was basically like a petting zoo. This idea of a family farm kind of started to come to my mind as I was learning how to integrate all these parts, because especially as an entrepreneur, it's not a 9 to 5 job. It's like always there. Like the cow always needs to be milked, the garden needs to be watered, and we need everyone pitching in. Like it was a family affair. And, my situation is unique because my husband's my co-founder, and we are like equally invested in our business and our family. But all of our kids are also invested. Some of them have been on the payroll. All of them have modeled at some point for some content. But just the sheer fact that I'm not home as much as I used to be. I don't volunteer as the art mom in the school anymore. There's a lot of things that I don't do that have been sacrifices that their whole family has had to make. And that feels like an investment. And, there are appropriate boundaries, I think, for, what are you going to bring your work home and talk about it nonstop? It's probably not a good idea. But when this feels like a family, entrepreneurial venture that we're doing together, we do talk about it a lot at the dinner table, because I want their ideas. I want their opinions. I want them to feel like they're bought in and they're part of this. So for me, it's integration, like across, all of our relationships at home and all of the touch points. And also their seasons, back to the family farm idea, like at different seasons, the farm is going to look different, and different seasons in my life, that integration is going to look different too.
Thank you so much. That's so interesting. I love the cow. Yeah, we had a cow too, but I had 6 brothers. And
Okay.
so I tried to milk a couple times. It didn't work. I think it takes you a while to figure out how to milk
Yes,
a cow better. It's a technique. So Jill, let me ask you a different question. How have you built confidence and I would say resiliency? I'm sure everything in your career has not gone perfectly right, but how do we all need that as women, and actually everyone, confidence and resiliency? How have you built that over the course of your career?
Oh, so many hurdles, from the outside, things look like, overnight successes, normally are 10 years of hard work to get there. And so for me, I actually did grow up on a farm in Maryland. And my father, though, was a small business entrepreneur. And so similar to what you're doing and what I'm now doing with my family, we talked about business at the dinner table. And so I knew as the economy was going up and down, we had the hard conversations. They didn't scare us as children, as things were happening, but I felt like those conversations were approachable, and I didn't see entrepreneurship as just this bright, shiny, glossy thing where everything's wonderful. I saw that there were hard things that happened, but I also saw the pride and the support that you can give grow in your community through that. And so it felt like something worth striving for. And so for me, I always have felt like success is a combination of passion and persistence. You do need to be deeply passionate about what it is that you're doing, but you also have to have persistence because, to your point, it's not always going to go your way. And I had so many different mantras in the early days of Motherly. You're not doing it wrong. It's just that hard was one of them, right? It doesn't get easier, you get stronger. These also work for motherhood, by the way. And then also just really feeling like, success was the only option and being so doggedly, persistent about that. I was actually diagnosed with multiple sclerosis about 3 months after launching Motherly.
Oh, wow.
And yes, and that is a time where many people would decide, my parents actually, really encouraged me, like, it must be the stress, you must step back, all of these things, and had wonderful medical care. I'm thriving with MS. I speak on it a lot and help, empower other people and give them hope when diagnosed. But I kept going. I kept going through that to get to the other side because it felt like I had the passion for what I was doing. And again, lots and lots of up and downs along the way.
Wow.
That persistence is so important. Can I just give you a little, those of you listening and you too? So I have done a lot of research. My first couple of books in 2007 and 2008 were about interviews that I had had on the lifetime development of leadership, one on US governors that were women, another one on university presidents. Both of them, plus others around the world, the dinner table conversation was really important for them to find their voice. Even I interviewed women in the United Arab Emirates in the Middle East, and they didn't even have books in their homes. But the women leaders actually had books and nobody else did. Their fathers were people that were in shipping and would bring them books and everything. But those dinner table conversations, they said, really helped them find their voices because the parents didn't shut them down. Isn't that interesting? And
Yeah.
you both
I totally believe that. I'm such a big believer of it. And my husband and I, the kids have to finish eating. So this is a way to get them to eat. We talk about our business. The kids are sponges. They pick up so much through the osmosis and they ask questions and they give ideas as they, the different seasons of childhood. And it is, to me, I credit when people ask me about why I felt capable of doing it. I often talk about the dinner table conversations that were had growing up that made me feel like it wasn't out of reach.
Yeah.
It is. And the governors, they would talk about new stoplights in their little towns and different kinds of things. And so I felt like with both of your comments that was important to, and at that time, I am like, I was a little getting sloppy with the dinner tables, cooking dinner. And after that, I'm like, come children, come to the dinner table.
And leave your phones behind.
Yeah.
Do not bring them
Right.
to, because that's what's happening now, even in my own
true.
family. Like even I feel tempted because often we'll be talking and I'm like, oh, I got to look up this thing. I was going to share this thing. Wait, let's ask ChatGPT about that one thing. And then all of a sudden we're all on our phones. So come to the dinner table, leave your phones and have those crucial conversations.
I love it. Thank you so much. To both of you, let's talk for a minute about barriers. So women have barriers, and I would say, and when I talk about women and barriers, I talk about sometimes internal barriers, right? And then also external barriers. So which one of you two wants to start? You can talk about internal, external. What are some barriers that you see that maybe you have experienced, but also just see in the world and in Utah specifically? Jill, do you want to jump in first?
Sure. So much of what holds us back is the story we tell ourselves. So speaking of those internal barriers, I really do think that's important. And speaking of those mantras, like sometimes you have to fake it till you make it is very much a real thing. And sometimes that's to your own self. Doing something, stepping out of your comfort zone and just telling yourself like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go for it. I'm part of a group called YPO, which is Young Presidents Organizations. You've scaled a business to a certain size by a certain age. And I will tell you, none of us have it all figured out. And these are people that are incredibly, competent and capable in business. It's about this changing the dialogue inside first to be able to show up with what you want to do. And then on the exterior barrier side, well, childcare is one that's very much,
Yes.
front and
Jill
center.
and I have had good conversations about childcare, and she's stepping into to help lead in the Boulder Way Forward as a leader in that childcare space. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's such a critical part of our society and the conversation that needs to be had right now. Women are incredibly educated and are capable of contributing in our economy. And candidly, in today's economy, we need two people working in many families now as well, just economically speaking, in order to sustain. And if we don't start seeing childcare as an infrastructure, as an economic and a societal infrastructure, then I don't know how we're going to make that happen. Because as an entrepreneur who already had children, similar to you, Vanessa, it wasn't just the trade-off of not getting a paycheck as I'm launching something new, not working, but it's also the need to pay for someone else to watch my children during that time, and the trade-offs that happen there. And so I think there are a lot of barriers that come because it's not really always a woman penalty, it's a motherhood penalty that actually hits women in the workplace, whether they're entrepreneurs or whether they're just in the workplace as a whole. And so again, I think it is about that internal voice that you tell yourself and knowing and owning your own power and what you bring to each situation, and start to use your voice to advocate for those external forces to change too.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Vanessa, thoughts, internal,
Oh,
external, all of
So
that.
good. The fake it till you make it has been a mantra of mine since 7th grade. Like I really internalize that and use it. I mean, some people say that's not a healthy thing, but it's internal to just like put on a brave face and things
Yes.
get easier as you
They do.
time at it. Oh my goodness. I felt so out of my element when I found myself, as an executive and founding member of our company. And my husband, once I was going to present at something and like, I don't know all the acronyms. I don't really know how to read that spreadsheet. I've got insights, that are unique to me and my experience that were helpful to our company, but there was so much I didn't know. And he told me once when I was feeling especially vulnerable, he's like, honey, there is no one right way to be an entrepreneur. And I just thought that clicked so like beautifully to me because I knew there was no one right way to be a mother. All of my friends and sisters, we all mothered differently. And so that like clicked and I'm like, okay, I don't have to know everything and be good at everything. And then I had another experience in a meeting where like often I would just have my laptop out. And if another acronym popped up, I would Google it real fast and be like, okay, that's what they're talking about. Heaven forbid I would ever ask a question, be like, what is that? But we were in another meeting and there was another woman there and, someone said something and I'm like, I have no idea. And she raised her hand and was like, I'm not familiar with that. Will you please explain that to me? And
Oh,
no big deal. It was like, I was just so impressed. And I'm like, I'm going to be like her because I'm sure if I have a
I
question,
gave you
I'll tell someone else
permission.
in the room that has a question. So I think learning to just like accept that I don't have to do everything and know everything. There's no such thing as a dumb question. There might be some rude person out there that will respond in a dumb way, but there's no such thing as a dumb question. Those are like internal things for me that I still like have to work on, depending on like the scenario and the situation. Externally, like I think
Before you switch, let me ask you. So you didn't use the word, but I can see that imposter syndrome. Sometimes we don't have, people sometimes say they have imposter syndrome and think about it in their whole life, but sometimes we don't have imposter syndrome in certain things, but maybe would you say that you had that kind of imposter syndrome in terms of that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I felt it 2 nights ago at an influencer event. I am not an influencer, but I sometimes get invited into that space and I feel like an imposter there. Like it is something that I feel, not all the time. In my home, I am very confident. Like I know how to, even though my 16-year-old is like turning upside down everything I thought I knew about parenting,
Oh,
I don't feel like an imposter. I'm like, well, that's
welcome
my
to the
problem. that's a him problem. No, that is the phrase to describe it. And I think, you know, it's something that I have to fight in certain areas of my life.
And I don't know if we all, women have it more than men. I don't think there's a point where we just are beyond that in every element of our life. That voice kind of speaks here and there from time to time. So external barriers.
External barriers. Well, like, I was really lucky. I'm so glad, Jill, that you are advocating for childcare, because I can see that in my team. Like, that is the hardest piece to figure out. And, over COVID, where there was no childcare and we were all working from home, like, that just opened my eyes a lot to, like, we have got to figure this out. Like, whether it is like corporate sponsored or government help, like, that is the thing that is keeping so many women from being able to go back. And it doesn't level the playing field. I mean, even in my own working relationship here with my husband, like, years, 20 years of patterns of, I'm the one, kids come to me, if they need something to school, they call me, and I'm the one to go, that those biases, those like cultural norms, all of that. Something that was interesting to me, though, like, we moved to Utah 10 years ago when we started the business. I grew up in Florida. We've lived in LA, in Boston, in Paris, like all over the world. And there was something unique here in Utah that kind of gets under my skin, and not in our business, because it's my husband and I are running it and we're hiring the people and we set the culture. But so often I will be at a meeting or an event and I'm invisible. Like, I go with my husband and they all talk to him. And, when we started to see this pattern, we made a pact, like, anytime we are asked to speak or present or we're in a meeting, I'm speaking first. Like, I'm going to take charge. Like, I'm going to pull the attention. I don't know. It was an interesting thing to note. And it just happened the other night. Like, literally, I even moved like this in front of my husband. Hey, like, we are having a conversation. Like, I don't know.
Because the eyes do, and a few times, I don't have this very often, but I've had people walk in, men, and kind of just look for someone more important, look a little bit over my head or something, especially when it has to do with business or something like that.
Well, and can I share another anecdote? We were doing a project with BYU marketing, and they were doing a little like study for us, and I was working with a team of women from BYU, and they shared with me that and I don't know if this is a Utah thing, it's something cultural here, but they said that there were men in their program that weren't allowed to be in a study group with them because they were women and their wives didn't want them with. And I was just like,
really?
Like, I just thought that was so odd. So I don't know if that is like how pervasive that is, if that's a cultural thing. I mean, I still feel like I'm really lucky to be in my safe Chatbooks bubble most of the time, but.
Well, you know what? I have not heard that. That was the first time I've heard that in a study group in students. I hear that often in Utah, which Jill, you can tell us if you've heard this in other states, but I do hear this constantly in Utah, where on travel or trips, one man, one woman, some of the spouses don't want their husbands to go and different things, and so, Jill, you're nodding. Do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a thing. There are more traditional values and norms here in Utah, but not just in Utah. These are pockets everywhere around the country, I would say. The challenge is that what they do is they hold women back only. And that is the real problem. And these are the things that we have to shift and change. We have to change that conversation around this, because it's as though we're putting the onus on the woman to figure this out on their own, and that's not her responsibility. And so to me, it's the same concept of like business getting done on the golf course, right? I actually like golf, but it's the concept of a good old boys network, and like finding different ways to shut women out. And this is a very effective one, what you've described. And it serves to hold women back. And the problem with this is that this is not, the early 1900s. Our economy needs women in the workforce. We are the most educated cohort for the first time in history. There are more women graduating college than men. We need women, that most educated cohort, to add value. We need to find different ways for them to integrate family and life through childcare, through work share opportunities and different things that will work for each of their individual needs. But we need them there. It's an absolute economic imperative, and we are going to lose competitiveness as a state and as a country if we don't find a way to make it work.
Yeah, and it's not all or nothing in terms of full-time,
Absolutely.
or no work at all. More and more women in our state, and Vanessa, in your company, maybe you see this as well. They want to do professional work, but they want that flexibility. And so a real professional quality part-time is more and more something that women want, and I would say also need in a lot of ways, because of what you brought up, Jill, in terms of economically, most families cannot have one of the partners stay at home full time. Vanessa, have you seen that at all? I mean, do you have employees, I'm assuming, that
Yeah.
really do love working
I mean,
part-time?
our entire customer support team, we affectionately called the Mom Force. I named my podcast after them because they were women that were smart and driven and wanted to contribute, but didn't want to work full time. And so we built an entire, modeled after the JetBlue customer support, women, that working from home part-time, the way it worked for their family. And they were fantastic. I mean, we were able and continue to offer world-class customer support that edges, gives us a competitive advantage, tapping into that workforce by being creative and, defining a new way to work.
I love that. So I have one more question. And then those of you listening in, please send your questions. And what are you dying to learn from these two? So my question is really, and this is an interesting question for more traditional areas, because you do have more women on your teams. I mean, that's just because, but still, inclusion is important. So think about that word, inclusion. So do you still think about inclusion in your workforce, and how do you make that a priority? Vanessa, let's have you start and then go over to Jill.
Well, okay, when I think inclusion, I know how important women are for our team because, just as I shared the way our company got started, my husband started it with a bunch of dudes and they were doing dumb things. They needed a woman's point of view to help guide the product and talk about the product. But we need inclusion, all kinds of diversity and all kinds of inclusion. And that was another challenge for us when pre-COVID, when we were all working in the same office here in Provo, Utah, to find, enough people to even come in an interview for a job. One of the beautiful blessings of COVID was that we dispersed our entire workforce, and now we can hire from all across the country. But hiring practices is key for us, making sure that we have really structured interviews and blind resume interviews. And we always have a diverse candidate, a panel of candidates for each job. That's something that we've really tried to focus on. And then that flexibility of work arrangements, not just for our Mom Force for the part-time, but even full-time. We call it our clubhouse. It's like our office in Lehigh, and we offer lunch twice a week. If you can come in, those are great times to come in and collaborate in office, but we give budget and allowance for people to build out their home office. You can take off time, make your family is your priority. I mean, that's our motto. It's our mission painted on our wall to strengthen families. I mean, and so how can we do that? Without offering that support to to everyone on our team through our family leave and flexible work.
That's awesome. Yeah. And Jill, does your company, even though it's mostly women, keep your eye on race and other kinds of different diversity elements?
Absolutely. I mean, when your company is called Motherly, it's a pretty self-selecting group, obviously, that applies in. But I have a requirement in the business where anytime that we must recruit until the qualified candidate pool eligible for an actual, final interview is a diverse pool. And so it sounds very similar, actually, Vanessa, to what you described. And so I won't accept and actually like sign off on a hire until I've confirmed that the candidate pool, the qualified candidate pool. And so we are very, it's about recruitment, frankly. I think you have a lot, one can be challenged to kind of stay inside your own network and who knows whom, and you end up staying in a small group of people that tend to have similar backgrounds and look similar also.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's about cognitive diversity. And this is from back in my intelligence days. If you have people that all have the same backgrounds and experiences, you're not going to solve hard problems very well.
True.
You really do need those different backgrounds and experiences and different lived experiences to bring to the problems that you're trying to solve. And that often comes from people with diverse economic backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different gender backgrounds, because those are things that inform our lived experiences to be different. And so it's absolutely a priority. And again, I want every mother to see themselves in Motherly. And so it's really important that our workforce and also the visuals that we're putting out are representative of today's moms as well.
Yeah, thank you. I know that was a different question to ask, more traditional, but I felt like that was important because oftentimes when we hear the word diversity, we're thinking of race or in some gender. But I loved both of your comments and just there's so much more to really being inclusive and being, having diversity and so forth. There's a question. One of you mentioned family, and I don't know if this is the exact question, trying to hold you back, even with good intentions over your health. So this is what
I think it's about I think this is about MS.
Okay. Oh, okay. And you've seen
I think this when I saw it on here. So the question is, when I mentioned my family trying to hold me back from continuing to work hard even after a diagnosis, they have great intentions related to that. And so the question is, how do you decide for yourself where the boundary is to avoid actually hurting yourself? I have 0 symptoms from MS, and it has not progressed in almost 8 years now. So very blessed with a lot of different things that require that to be true. I am educated and know how to advocate for myself in healthcare, access to great medical team, access to health insurance to support that, and an amazingly supportive family and village to help me with that. So all of those things have to be true. And so but what really happened, and I speak about this a lot, is I had, in some ways, the MS diagnosis became a gift because I think so often mothers, including working mothers, put themselves last to the detriment of our own health, whether it's MS or something else that has come your way. We often are there serving all of our children first and foremost, and our spouse and our businesses and our communities, and we are the last one on our list. And so what MS actually did for me and this diagnosis, and I would encourage anyone who has a diagnosis of some sort like this, is to flip this instead of why did this happen to me, which we all have those moments, but why did this happen for me is a really different way to flip that in your head. And for me, it gave me permission to prioritize myself and to put my health and well-being first, and to make sure that I was prioritizing that I am working out, that I am eating well, that sleep is the foundation of so much. And so I created new guardrails that I hadn't had there before as part of this. And that is what has led to my whole mantra around Motherly, is that when mothers are successful, when we are thriving, families and communities are thriving. And so it reminded me that if I'm not healthy, my family's not healthy. My business isn't healthy. And so to always be prioritizing that and unapologetically prioritizing.
Love that word. And you both may not know this research, but Utah ranks 49th of 50th in preventative health care for women. So we, even more, I think, than the nation, are taught within our culture to be selfless, and all of that can have its good points, right? But when it crosses over into our women not getting annual visits, and we know we're in the bottom specifically of mammographies, which is really troublesome.
I just had mine.
Me too.
Go
do it.
It is interesting. And one of my OBGYNs told me a number of years ago, in fact, she moved from Utah. She couldn't take it because she would ask people to get them. And she just told one after another they had cancer. But she told me that I said, well, is it the working women that are out? And she actually said that in her experience, it was the stay-at-home moms that weren't getting
I
it
agree.
more.
We find that as well in our data.
Yeah,
For sure.
so I need to be selfless. Yes, it's good to serve and do all of that, but we
It's the
have to have
martyrism
the
of
math.
motherhood. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the martyrism of motherhood, that mentality that, again, there is some sort of honor in that martyrism. And, every single woman that avoided that, and I can promise you, she would say that her family would have been better off had she gone and gotten that mammogram, had she gone and done that thing to prioritize herself. And so it's taking a long view and not a short view, and understanding and valuing yourself in your family. Right. And understanding how you are the core and the crux and the foundation. We as mothers are the foundation of society.
we really
Nothing.
are. Vanessa, we're
And
just going and I want to bring you in.
No,
Any
I'm just
questions about-
amen. Yes, I agree. So, I'm really lucky. My mom modeled for me. I mean, she had 12 kids, so you would think she was fall into this martyr category, but she was not. She
Oh,
didn't work outside of the home, but she was always developing herself. Like she's an artist, always painting or basket weaving or doing something, reading, traveling, cooking exotic foods. And she really instilled in me this, like, I can do anything. I'm the most amazing, young woman. And I really feel like I'm watching her take care of herself so she could take care of all of her kids. Like that just was built into me. And so it
what a
comes so
good
naturally to
example.
me. But as I'm hearing you say this, like I'm thinking of people I know who have not gotten their mammogram because they're too busy being cheer mom, doing all of the like noble stay-at-home mom stuff, which is all great too. But like you get one diagnosis and that's over, so.
Exactly. So Vanessa, I'm going to go to you. There's another question. And we're really switching and I'm looking at, let's be quick on this one
Okay.
because I've got a couple of conclusion questions. Our time is going quickly, but we have a question on how did you figure out as entrepreneurs, right? How did you figure out the steps you needed to get your business started, both small and big, and I would say growing your business? When did you, any comments, any thoughts about that for this listener?
Yeah, I'll say for me, my husband had started a couple of businesses and he kind of had a playbook that he was, running, but like this is a new industry and, new, marketing direct to consumer, like a product was like a whole new thing. We just built a network of people who were trying to do the same thing and just talked and
Really?
shared. Like I think sometimes entrepreneurs think you have to hold everything really close to the chest. You don't want anyone to know what you're doing. And it might you might share some proprietary information that someone will take advantage of. But in my experience, like the more people you talk to and you learn from, even in your industry who's doing the same thing you're doing, like you can gain so much strength from them.
I love that. Jill, I'm going to shift over now to asking you, what are books or training, a couple of things that you would recommend for professional development, for whatever, to listeners that have been helpful for you?
Oh goodness. So one that comes to mind right now, that I speak of a lot, and there's probably others that are better, but on those days when persistence was really necessary. And by the way, my kids listen to these on road trips as well. How I Built This. It's a podcast about businesses. And it's a lot of brand. You can go through and look at them. My kids would pick brands that they knew to listen to the stories. I found it so incredibly empowering to listen to, like Lululemon as an example, how it almost died 10 times, right? So all of those times when I feel like Motherly has almost died 10 times, it was very validating to see how that persistence pays in all of this. And so that, again, from the outside, what looks like an overnight success is frequently and most often 10 years of hard work to get there. And so to me, that type of storytelling and validation of that, hearing it from someone in their own voice about a business, has always been really inspiring for me. And then that would probably be my number one, because I don't, I mean, I just listened. I like to listen to nonfiction increasingly at like 1.25 speed, on audiobooks. And, I just listened to Elon Musk's, and like, love him or hate him, it was incredibly inspiring, and really interesting. So for me, I like hearing stories of people and their business, and rather than someone telling me like a self-help, like do X, Y, Z, I like to kind of pull my own story, my own concepts and ideas out of other people's stories.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
How I Built This was a favorite for me too. I binged all of those when we were starting our business for that very reason. I loved how he would leave in a cliffhanger, and then everything was falling apart. And like Lululemon, they figured it out at some point. So encouraging. My friend Whitney Johnson wrote a book, several books, but her latest one about S-curves, I really love, because it just so beautifully illustrates what that path looks like. You start off down here, you get mastery, you peak, and then you're going to have to start over again. Like right when you think you know what you're doing, it doesn't work anymore, or the market changes, or something changes, and it feels like you're starting over again. But linked together, it's this beautiful growth curve. That's a book that I really, really love, and recommend. And then also Radical Candor by, yeah. Okay. So we give that to everybody on our team, because it's so important. Everyone has such different communication styles, and so many of us learn communication from our homes, like how we grow up and how our parents talk to us, and they're not always effective, right? Me included. So learning how to, care deeply but speak directly, is a skill that we have to work on, men and women. I mean, I think sometimes men skew one way and women skew the other.
Yeah.
Learning effective communication is so important. So that's another great.
Thank you so much. Got a few more minutes, not too many, but I always in this series get to this question. And Jill, you know a lot about the Bolder Way Forward, and hopefully Vanessa, you know a little bit about at least. But the primary goal of a Bolder Way Forward, which is a 7-year societal change movement, is to ensure that more Utah girls and women thrive in any setting. So we're talking about home, workplace, any setting. So Jill, what do you think are two of the most important things that need to be done in Utah to make this happen? And I'm going to really guess on one of those two, because you have a passion.
One would be childcare. Yes, absolutely. One is childcare for sure. And in the way that I like to leave people with something actionable. There are bills right now, at our state legislature, being debated and talked about around childcare. Be informed on those. Ask candidates, or research candidates during election years on, both at the state level and the national level, on what their policies are around childcare, and be active and engaged in that area is one critical important area. The other, I would say, is that we all change the conversations at home, with our girls. I think it really starts so early. I have 3 brothers, and my parents always just treated us exactly the same, right? The expectations were the same, the conversations being had, but I never thought of myself as having some doors closed because I was a girl. And I know that that's not the case for everyone else, but it makes all the difference, because your parents' voice is the voice in your head as you grow up. And so I think changing those conversations and being intentional about that from a very early age is one of the most impactful things we can do.
Thank you. And I think in addition to conversation, it's just modeling, because we have such a gap in so many things. And some of it is just subtle, like math. We have the biggest gap in the nation between math of 8th graders, between girls and boys. And it's not that they're less smart, but somehow through example and conversations, it's getting through. Vanessa, a couple of thoughts from you on what you think really needs to change in terms of making Utah a place where more girls and women can thrive.
Yeah, I think, any opportunity to champion the success of women and girls and shine a spotlight on what they're doing. Obviously, I think we've done a lot of really amazing things in Utah as far as access to STEM programs and SheTech and the Women's Tech Council. Those are things that I've been actively involved in. And I don't know, my own brain doesn't feel any limit. I don't see those limits or feel those limits. And I've raised my girls, I think, with that same mentality, but I'm always so surprised in different, different people's homes or in different situations, how strong some of those biases are. So I don't know, is there some way to, some training or, some way to like point out like this gap? Like even my own amazing, wonderful husband, was raised in a very traditional home with very traditional gender roles. And when we have dinner at grandma's house, the boys are excused and the girls clean the kitchen. Like that's just, and that felt like normal, but like now I'm helping my husband see that those biases, like they are leaking out in some of the ways that you're, handling things at work. Or it's so funny to me, like we will leave the same meeting and I will be like, whoa, did you notice that? And he's starting to notice it. He didn't used to, because it's just, that's what he's used to. But now he's getting better. He's getting trained in part because I'm there like calling it out. And now his daughters are calling it out. So maybe there's some work to be done there.
All of that is so important to just recognize, because there's a lot of subtle cultural things that are not, people sometimes can't point to, but we know they're there. So thank you for those suggestions. And I have to say thank you so much for joining us, both of you, today on this webinar. And I'd like to thank everybody that joined today and everybody that's watching after this. Thank you for joining and listening in. Also, I want to thank our sponsors one more time, the Utah Education Networks, especially, and then John M. Huntsman School of Business and USU Extension for making this event possible. So thanks again to everybody and have a wonderful rest of your day.